I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, degenerate sleuths of the night. We gather to boldly go where others have refused. Welcome to the DT show, you salty mofos.
A man accused of killing 4 college students is behind bars, and he has ties to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. State police say 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested this morning at a home in Chestnut Hill Township.
I can't find any case law that would support that idea. That somehow a warrant would be needed for DNA left at a crime scene.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
So, the Commonwealth just provided the court with information that causes me grave concern. The implications of that information may have profound effects on this defense and defense counsel.
So, get your popcorn ready and your choice of drink. Get your butt on your seat. Like, comment, and subscribe for a treat. Here we go. It's time for the show. The Drunk Turkey Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I hope everybody's having a great night. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe. We are at, 47.8K subscribers. It's amazing, guys. The subscriber list keeps going up. You guys are doing amazing. We're about to hit 47.9 on the subscribers. So we actually need just about 8 more subscribers to hit the 47,000.9 mark. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Consider being a member. You guys know what to do. I hope everybody's had a good day so far. I know StreamYard was working a little funny earlier. I'm glad that it's back up and running. Today we're going to be going back into the Bryan Kohberger case, and I wanted to talk about a few things. And some of the things that I wanted to talk about are a couple of things that shown up on the case summary in the case. I wanted to also talk about some witnesses that are from out of state, and we're going to go also into the motion to continue the opposition of that by the state for the motion to continue. There's a table at the bottom, something that I kind of overlooked the last time I talked about it. I kind of want to look into that. And then also what we're going to talk about is the Amazon Prime has a new documentary that's going to be coming out next month, featuring some of the victims' family members. And we're going to break down that trailer, look at it, see who's in the trailer, what they say, and maybe what to expect, and so much more. So again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, or even the notification bell. So the first thing that we're going to start off with is in the case summary, and this just kind of slipped through. I didn't see it because I was talking about other things in the last couple of days. But on the 11th, there was a couple of different motions. A motion to seal the defendant's motion for access to objection to the court's order, and a motion to seal the defendant's objection to release a privileged and confidential work product, and also sealed the state's response to the defendant's motion referencing a special investigation. Now, I kind of went through here. I don't see a motion for a special investigation from the defense. I didn't see it, but I'm sure it's one of these motions that are just say motion. and don't say anything into it. But so this tells me that sometime before the 11th, the defense filed a motion for a special investigation. Now, what this is in reference to, my belief, is going to be the special prosecutor to determine about the leaks and who was responsible for those. So, to me, I think this is another stall tactic. Dateline kind of dropped a helpline in the bucket there for Bryan Kohberger's defense team when it comes to their possibility of getting this thing stalled. Now, I don't think it's going to get granted the continuance. I think it'll be denied. If it is continued, though, I don't think it's going to be for very long. There's been some questions about certain things. The defense brought up in a recent hearing that there was a book that's going to be brought out. Well, now there's also a documentary that's going to be brought out at the same time, kind of referencing the book. And that's the one that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But now, even more things are just going to be coming out. And that was one of the arguments for the state, was that the longer we wait to do this, more stuff's going to come out. And the more stuff that comes out, it's just it'd be best to get it done now. Let's go through it. Let's do it now. And in my opinion, these guys are trying to just basically stall this out and get this investigation going. But I don't think it's going to go anywhere. If it does, maybe 30 days, maybe 90 tops. But I really don't think that's going to be. I really, truly believe that this thing's going to go off as scheduled on the 11th of August. But I wanted to point that out. Now, this is the one of the tables, or this is back from the opposition for the defendant's motion to continue from the state. I kind of went over it, I think, a couple of days ago when it came out. I didn't go into it to too much detail. If I remember correctly, I think I went over it. I know I read it. Obviously, I did. I highlighted the crap out of it. But one thing that I didn't go through is the table at the bottom. Now, what this is so what they did was they kind of lined up everything that the defense was saying as far as why they needed more time. And then they put in a table why they don't need that time. Like, they've already made these investigations. They've already looked into these things. And they basically did the work for the defense by saying, well, these are the answers to the questions that you had based on the people that you have. So, for instance, medical history, the defendant cited an area for inquiry, which was the medical history aspect. So they wanted to look into his medical history and they wanted more time to do so. The states responded stating that his medical history is contained in his exhibits, and they point out quite a few exhibits. It's also addressed in multiple expert reports of mental health professionals, and family members can testify about this topic. And a lot of that's going to be stated over and over again. It's going to be redundant a little bit, but they're absolutely correct on a lot of these topics. Any missing medical records have been made available to the defendant can be obtained prior to the penalty phase. And that's also going to be something that is repeated. Complete prenatal, pediatric, and adult health information. Again, they talk about some exhibits that the defendant has had that those are contained in. Also his expert medical records of his mental health professionals and family members. So again, some of the same things. Exposure to harmful substances in utero and in the environment. And the state says there's no evidence this is relevant. Substance abuse history. This is also contained in the defendant's exhibits. Addressed in multiple reports of mental health professionals. So a lot of the same stuff. And what we are aware of, at least, is the fact that in his room, they found green leafy substances believed to have been marijuana. And we know that he has a past with heroin. And so is there more to it? Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe it's also if he was prescribed drugs and he abused those substances that he was prescribed, that could be a possibility as well. I don't know the answer to those questions, though. Mental health history was contained in the defendant's exhibits. History of maltreatment and neglect. No evidence that this is relevant. Trauma history. Record shows that childhood car accident contained in the defendant's exhibits. Elsewhere, the defendant's discovery. So this one was interesting to me because I overlooked this. Apparently, they're going to look at if Bryan Kohberger is found guilty, if he had any incidences of trauma to his head, and they're going to point that he was involved in a car accident as a child. Now, I don't know the severity of this car accident. This is the first I hear of it. I'd be interested in to know how bad of a car accident this was. If anybody does have that information, please let me know. And not rumors, actual information that you can point to and say, hey, here's the police report, or here's a newsletter or article that was referencing the car accident that he was involved because it was a serious one, or whatever the case may be. But to me, it seems like if found guilty, they're going to try to use this as a reason why, maybe perhaps to avoid the death penalty, those type of things. So trauma history is going to be addressed. There's a childhood car accident. Educational history is also addressed in his exhibits and in multiple reports of his medical history. And this one's interesting because now they start throwing in some initials, right? And this one's, I'm going to keep this page. When we go through some of the other documents, we'll see if any of the initials match up. But it says here, family members and other identified witnesses, including former teachers. MB, I'm sure, is Michelle Bolger. JC, not sure. CH, not sure. DM, not sure, but I'm fairly positive that's not Dylan Mortenson. That's somebody else with the same initials. AP, don't know. KR, probably Catherine Ramslin is who I'm thinking that is. DW, not sure either. Former classmates, MD, AH, AM, CM, and EP can testify about his educational history. But we'll keep this document open when we go through the next one to kind of go over if there's any correlations between some of these folks. Employment and training history. The defendant has a limited employment history. Family members. First and foremost, it says he has a limited employment history. I think, when we look back at what we know of as what his jobs were, and I made the statement that it sounds like he was forced to resign or was fired from almost every position that he's had. It seems to be accurate that it sounds like because of a limited amount of employment history that is accurate. Because I would say it's just, those are just the jobs that we know of. He was apparently a meat packer at one point. Then he was a fish filleter, or whatever you want to call it. He cut fish, where he was asked, he said, according to the owner, they said that it was a mutual agreement, that it just wasn't the right job for him. There was the security guard at the high school that he attended, where he was forced to resign. There was the TA position that he had in Washington that he was also fired from on December 19th, I believe, is when the termination was official, before his arrest. So, yeah. I don't know if he had any other jobs outside of that, but from the ones I do know, it just seems like it is pretty accurate that it is a limited employment history. All right, military experience not applicable. Multi-generational family history, genetic disorders and vulnerabilities, as well as multi-generational patterns of behavior contained in his exhibits, addressed in multiple reports. Mental health and family members can testify. Prior juvenile and adult correctional experience not applicable. Religious, gender, sexual orientation, ethnic, racial, cultural, and community influences. Family members and other identified witnesses, including fellow congregants, and he has EMJR. Acquaintances, AF. Friends, BA and DF. So he's got two people that are possibly identified as witnesses that he considers friends, one as an acquaintance, and neighbors, and he's got a handful of those, can testify about this topic, and he has some religious history contained in discovery. Says here, the next one, socioeconomic, historical, and political factors. Some of the same individuals that he mentioned earlier, it's almost basically the same thing. That the same people who could testify about his religious, gender, sexual orientation, and testify for his socio-economic historical and political factors. All right. And the client's family extended 3 generations back, those familiar with the client. And he says all living family members are subject to subpoena power. Many have spoken to the defendant's expert witnesses and are on the defendant's witness list. And there are some more initials. These are, I believe, experts. The client's friends, teachers, classmates, coworkers, employers, and all those who served in the military with the client, as well as who are familiar with the client's early and current development and functioning medical history environment. A bunch of guys, same thing. Social service treatment, same, not applicable. Witnesses familiar with the client's prior juvenile and criminal justice and correctional experiences, not applicable. And he's got friends. So again, they basically broke it down saying that there's not anybody there that Bryan Kohberger still pretty much has left over. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're basically saying that all of the inquiry that they still need to do, they've already done. They've completed this. They've submitted it. They've done the work on these things. And this is the evidence pointed out in their own work history. So take that for what it is. All right. Now, the one thing that I did want to look at, and this was interesting. So in the Odyssey portal, this is for Washington Courts online case search. You can see where there are, if there are, hold on, let me pull this back a little bit. Cases, open cases against somebody. Now, in this reference here, these are all people that are being asked to testify in this case, right? These are people that are going to testify in this case against or for Bryan Kohberger. I don't know if we can tell which one is which. Now, there's 17 of these witnesses. Now, my assumption is that some of these are probably going to be his classmates that they mentioned, his teachers that are there at WSU, as they mentioned them as well. I would assume that some of these might also be investigators at the FBI office in Washington. Now, the not necessarily the weird thing, but the only one that has a name associated with it is this last one. This one was filed on May 23rd, 2025, and this is material witness out of state of Washington, out of state defendant Bryan Kohberger. Motion waiver fees, blah, blah. Motion for an order to direct the attendance of Timothy DeWolf in an Idaho district court. Now, I've located who Tiffany DeWolf is. He's it appears that he attends Sigma Chi, and he is friends with Ethan Chapin's brother, or at least one of them, from what I could see. So to me, I think this is most likely a state witness. I know some people might go, oh no, maybe this is something to do with the alternative perpetrator stuff. That stuff is sealed. So his name would not be out if that was the case. So to me, this is most likely a state witness, probably something to do with the timeline. He was probably at the party, that Ethan and Xana and Bethany attended at Sigma Chi. So that would be my best guesstimate on this one. There are some other ones. Let's see. This one right here is in the matter of the application of the state of Idaho for an order directing the attendance of AF. So it just has initials. Let's pull back the. All right, do we see in the witness list here an AF? AF right here, an acquaintance. So that one can be and possibly is one of Bryan Kohberger's witnesses. You know what I'm saying? So he lived in that area. He lived in Washington. The one referencing neighbors and stuff like that. AF is in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if that one specifically is for Bryan Kohberger, and his on somebody for his side of things, so to speak. Let's just pick out a random next one. This one's DT. Is that me? They're good. They're trying to get old DT on here. Let's see. Let's see if DT is in any of these witness initials. So JS, AI, A, JMB, JC, MD, I don't see any DT, DW, DM, EM, JR, AF, BA, DF, ANA, AUA, FA, GN. Well, I ain't seen no DT. This one has quite a few right here. BW, no DT. So, could it be me? I wouldn't be testifying for Bryan Kohberger. So, could DT be somebody for the state? Now, remember, there was also a situation where, was it the prosecutor, Hank? Not Hank, wrong case, my bad. Bill Thompson. He had mentioned when they were asking about cameras on certain witnesses, on some of these federal witnesses, if they could not have cameras on them because they do some covert work. Could be Nick Balance. I heard that he just testified in the Lori Vallow case. Thank you, Chloe, for clearing that up for me. And he wasn't on camera. And so perhaps that's maybe who that is. I remember there was and I was trying to find it, but I couldn't find it for you guys. It was a video where it was on News Nation where there were some guys that were in the house walking around, and they were called the cowboy detectives or something like that because they were dressed like cowboys. They came out. Brian Enton was out there, I think. They're trying to ask questions, and they were like covering their faces. I wouldn't be surprised if those guys, because they were super covert-ish, like the way they were covering their faces, the way they were trying to get into the van was like so that you couldn't see inside of it. When I first saw it, to me, I was like, man, they might have somebody inside that they don't want people to see. Maybe there's a witness in there. Maybe Dylan or Bethany was in the van, pointing something out or whatever the case may have been. But, just kind of seeing their reaction walking to the van, I think they were just trying not to show much of their face. So maybe, but DT, it's not on any of those witness. I mean, doesn't mean that all of those initials are the ones on Bryan Kohberger's witness list either. That could be just a fraction of the amount of people that are on there. DT could be Bryan Kohberger's witness, and it's just not be listed in those boxes of initials we read, right? I'm just saying that I find this could be the other way around, though. All right, but good old DT testifying in this case. Now let's do one more, just a random one here. CC. Let's see if CC is on here. CEAK. No. No CC. No CC. No CC. I'm not seeing a CC. So this one, I mean, like I said, I don't know, but they're not listed as on this table of initials. That doesn't mean that they're not Bryan Kohberger's witness, but I don't know if they would be or not. So interesting stuff there. All right. Let's see. What is up, Maine Hypnosis, coming in, becoming the newest member. Thank you so much. It's an awesome name, by the way. All right. At the end, guys, I'll do a little Q&A, and we'll discuss and do the questions and stuff. All right. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about, I really hope freaking YouTubes don't copyright me for this, but we're going to break this down every 15 seconds or so. So be prepared. We're going to stop this a lot. So this is the trailer for One Night in Idaho, the College Murders. It's the official trailer. It's a Prime Video. I was watching another podcast earlier and they were talking about this, and they mentioned that this video here, this docuseries, is one where they were interviewing. Well, first they said it was one that was going to be correlated or together with the book that was referenced in the in Ann Taylor's report the other, when it came to the leaker and stuff like that, and potential other people leaking and more information coming out, right? So they were saying that these two were the same. They mentioned the fact that in this other podcast, they said that they believe that all of the victims' family members were a part of this and were interviewed. I can say that I have confirmed that that is not the case. Steve and the Goncalves family are not a part of this Prime docuseries. They are part of another docuseries, one that is on Netflix. They initially were agreed to be on this Netflix one. However, because because it was going to be released before the trial, they decided they were going to switch, and they switched firms, and they are still part of the Netflix, but it is not coming out until after the trial. They wanted to make sure that they didn't violate anything by saying anything on those docuseries, or not even that. They just wanted to respect the process of the trial. You know what I'm saying? And so they also told me that they are in the works with a book, but the same thing goes. The book was, they'd spoken to somebody else earlier. They wanted to release the book before the trial, and they said no, out of respect to the trial. And so they do have a book that's being worked on, or they're working with an author on a book to make sure that the book is accurate, and that's not coming out until after the trial. So for all these people that hate on them and all these other things, saying that they're just trying to not respect the court or whatever the case may be, it's bold-faced lie. It's a bold-faced lie. And so, I know that it's Steve and Jeff who are going to be a part of the Netflix. Jeff, I believe, is Jeff Kernodle. So they're the part of the Netflix, and same reason on the book and the Netflix. They wanted to make sure it didn't come out until after the trial. Now, I do want to say that Bryan Kohberger's team has in the past dropped documents where they wanted to restrict people's opinions, people's thoughts, people's words, what people say, what people see, the victims, celebration of victims. They said in documents, and they being the defense, that having a vigil for the victims was something that wasn't that hindered their client, that it would lead to an unfair trial. That was one of the reasons why they were asking for that trial to be moved out of Moscow and to Boise, was because of the vigils and the celebration of life and the victims and the impact that they had on the community, which I thought was a horrible reason to want to move a trial. But they wanted to censor those things. And, I understand there's a gag order, and I understand that there's a want for a fair trial for Bryan Kohberger, but at the expense of victims' family members wanting to remember and speak on their children and brothers and sisters, I think that's ridiculous, especially to favor the accused. You want to silence family members from talking about their kids and loved ones. I just don't see the correlation there where that equates to an unfair trial for Mr. Kohberger if you want to silence the family members. But what do they know? It's not like Steve or Christy or Jeff or Maddie's parents or Xana's parents or Ethan's parents were in the war room with the detectives. They were in the evidence room handling things. None of that was happening. So to try to silence them or want them to be quiet or to expect them to be quiet, I think it's an unreal expectation, and it shouldn't be one that is, in my opinion, should even be considered, especially if your goal is to silence, family members who are grieving and things like that, just to make somebody else who is alleged to have committed those crimes feel better about themselves, or feel like they're not getting bombarded. Because it's not, I mean, to me, that's more of a, guilty conscience there, right? Like, how when consciousness of guilt, there we go, to look at those vigils, to look at a celebration of life and see that in a negative manner towards yourself, to me, is a consciousness of guilt. So with that out of the way, let's break this down. So I stepped foot in the house, and immediately Hunter was like, somebody call 911. So that doesn't sound like Dylan. It doesn't sound like Bethany. We know that Hunter's girlfriend was the other person that was on the scene. Ashlyn, I believe, is her name. I could be wrong on that. I think I might be wrong on that. I think that was the one that was supposed to be there and wasn't there. Oh gosh, names are starting to confuse me now. But this sounds like this was the girl who was on the 911 call with Dylan, the one that was the most calm, in my opinion. So she's going to take part in this documentary.
The question.
Whoa, let me go back real quick. That looked like crime scene photo. All right, is this a? I mean, it's not a crime scene photo. There's no, but is this just what it looked like? I saw the room flash, and it looked like a bedroom. So I was like, "Whoa, is that a crime scene photo?" It does not look like it. This could be a staged replica of somebody's room. It looks kind of like. Does that look like Dylan's room? Do those photos on the side there next to that picture look like the collection of photos? There we go, Emily. Yes, thank you, Chloe, for helping me out with that. But these photos, right? Let me make this bigger. I apologize, guys. These photos right here, don't they look like the collage of photos that Dylan had? The one with the eyebrows and stuff that the defense was like, oh, look, she looks at eyebrows. This could be Dylan's room. This could be Dylan's room.
The question.
What? I want to see what that. EX. Is that Sigma Chi? I'm not good with numerals and stuff. Could that be Sigma Chi? If so, I don't know. I'm not good with the numeral things. I wonder what that is. Yeah, it is. It is for Sigma Chi. All right, then who would have that in that room? Xana, right? So this would be Xana's animal, if this is accurate. I mean, this, I guess, again, this is probably all correlation, but we're going to see something about Xana's room. So she says there's a big realization that we've been stalked for so many months. So I don't know who this is. She somewhat resembles Bethany, but I don't think this is Bethany. This could be the person that was supposed to be at the house, but didn't and left. The one that was on the other documentary, whose mom was on the other documentary. Right? But she says, it appears we were stalked. Maybe she's just somebody that was on Bryan Kohberger's phone. Remember, there was a lot of pictures of people who were on Bryan Kohberger's phone that were close to the victims. Let me rewind a little bit.
That we had been stalked for so many months and had no clue.
She kind of looks like Bethany, but I don't think that's Bethany. Emily, some folks are saying Anthony, Ashlyn could be. This is Emily added. Okay. All right. Was she on Bryan Kohberger's phone then? If she's saying that it appears that we were being stalked for a few months, if she's the neighbor that is right next door, was she on Brian? What did she find out that she's on Bryan Kohberger's phone? Huh. So this has to do also with the book. Now I've known about this for a little bit, that when I heard about the book, that the book had to do with the Chapin family. They wanted to get their side of things out, and they wanted to talk about their son and brother. Chapin's brother just spoke. We saw his family. You know, I feel so bad for them, you know, for all of them, obviously, all of them, but like, you know, they took it really, really hard too. I mean, they all did, but like, just like they were so heartbroken about so many things that they couldn't talk about so much. And, you know, they had the Ethan's smile and stuff, and it's good for them that they're now able to confront it. And it sounds like they're going to be there for the trial too, to represent Ethan, and good for them. So we're going to see Hunter come forward. I don't think Hunter would be a part of the gag order, because what does he really know, right? Like, he was just there when he discovered the scene, and you know, he wasn't aware of Bryan Kohberger. Nobody was aware that he was stalking them. You know, those type of things. That is one of the guys from Sigma Chi that was blamed for a lot of this. A lot of people, like so many innocent people, were blamed. And, you know, I see this trend in the true crime community where people will just blame anybody at any time. It's kind of crazy, to be honest with you. You know, and all on like zero evidence, and mainly on hunches or what other people said, or somebody said something in a chat, and somebody else read it and said, "Oh, that makes sense," and then repeats it somewhere else and said, "I heard this," and then somebody else sees that and says that somebody said that they heard something, and now they believe that it is from a reliable source, and they're like, "Oh, it was reported that this happened," and then that's just how that goes. And I've seen it in this case and other cases that I've talked about, where they just like will blame anybody. You know, I you know, Delphi case is one that I wasn't too familiar with, but you know, as I was going through that one, I found out that the victims' family members were blamed. They were talked down upon in certain places. The other case I talked about is Karen Reed's case, and his family members get blamed, and it's just, or get talked down upon. And you know, in this case, Steve and his family been talked down upon and get blamed, and just anybody and everybody. And it's like a trend that I've noticed, that it's just so disturbing and weird. It's crazy. It says original series. Does that mean it's more than one episode? You know, yeah, it's not just or is this part of the continuing saga of what they've been covering? Have they put out other stuff on Amazon Prime? I wonder. Looks very, very good. It looks like something I'm definitely going to want to watch. It's on Amazon Prime, July 11th. All right. You know, let's play it again. I'm just going to play it on mute. Airing July 11th. So about a month from now, it'll air, and we'll definitely cover it. I'm going to cover the book whenever it comes out. I'm trying to get a hold of the author and the other lady that was the journalist also involved in it. See if they would want to come on the channel. If anybody has any connections to him, please reach out to him and let them know. I talked to Steve about getting the author that he's working with to come on the channel when they're ready, and I think that'll be in the works. So she's saying a big realization that we have been stalked for so many months. to me, she's coming under the realization that maybe she was stalked as well. I wonder what she knows. Now, I don't know if that would be part of some sort of gag order, if she was aware that, Bryan Kohberger had her pictures or was following her on her profile. I mean, that's the other thing too. I wonder if that was the case, right? Like, imagine living in that area, right? And then you find out that this person gets arrested. He may have committed this crime, or most likely committed this crime. And then you go through your friends list and you see that he's following you. That would be nuts. The last docuseries from Dateline mentioned that Bryan Kohberger allegedly had photos of and followed friends of, very close friends of the victims. What closer can you get than your next door neighbor? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like I said, I mean, the victims coming out and talking about what they went through, their family members, the Chapins, the Goncalves, Kernodles, Mogens, any of them, if they want to come out and talk about, their child and, the life they had and how beautiful they were and everything else, that they can. And if some of those questions lead into like, hey, do you think they got the right guy? I mean, why should anybody silence them? I don't get that. That's not for me. That's not for me. All right, guys, put a couple of stars next to your comments. If you want me to look at it, I'll do about 10 minutes of questions, and then we'll call it a show. So Robert P comes in with a $3 super sticker. Thank you so much, Robert. Appreciate you. Let's see if I see anything that was starred beforehand. I just can't imagine the evil that is someone to do this, not only to one person, but four. So I like this comment because it reminds me of a question that was brought up to me. Somebody who had watched the channel for a while said that I had the opinion at one point that mass murder may have been the motive behind this, to create a high profile crime, and that was the reason why he didn't care about the new car out front or Ethan's vehicle there. His goal was to outsmart everybody and not only do that, but put it on the biggest stage possible by creating a high profile crime. And one way you do that is by having multiple victims. And I still think that that's a possibility. I also think that there's a possibility that he may have had only one victim in mind, and still to create a high profile crime. The mystery behind it would also make a high profile crime. So if you imagine, if you were to see the news and there was, a house of 6 people, one person was deceased in the house, in a violent manner, such as, stabbing. Nobody woke up, nobody heard anything. You have a lot of focal points for blame, for controversy. Like I just mentioned right now, a lot of people were getting blamed without really any evidence or anything like that. But could you imagine if he was able to have gone into a single room where there was only one person, commit the crime that he wanted, and gotten out without alerting anybody? The blame on everybody else in that house would have been insane, right? And then, the investigation that would have had to have been done in that manner. I mean, you really probably covering your tracks in a case like that. The other thing too is the abduction aspect. I thought maybe there was the possibility that, given his location or alibi location, and I put alibi in quotations because it's not a real alibi, but him saying that he was out there at the Walleye Park, to me, I wonder, did he have intentions of going out there? Is that why he said it? Was his intentions to take somebody there? That was the location where Joyce LePage's body was found. Now, I don't know if that was a location where her life was taken. I don't think so, because there was a rug that was taken from so Joyce LePage, long story short, she attended WSU back in the early 70s. Her remains were found wrapped in a WSU carpet out in the Walleye Park. And some people speculate that it could have been Ted Bundy's first murder. Now, some people say it's not Ted Bundy's, whatever. That doesn't really matter. What matters is if Bryan Kohberger thought it was Ted Bundy's first murder. Because if he did, or if he was aware of Joyce LePage, which I believe he was, because doing a Google trend search shows that Joyce LePage and Ted Bundy were searched together in the Pullman, Washington area while Bryan Kohberger was out there. So doesn't necessarily mean it was him or anything like that, but just an interesting thing, especially once we find out that he was highly, highly interested in Ted Bundy and was searching Ted Bundy on his phone. Well, anyway, so if his alibi is out there, is it possible that was because he planned on going out there? Was his plan to recreate, the something like what happened with Joyce, but with one of these victims from Moscow? And that would have brought a huge mystery. Somebody went missing from their home without no forced entry or anything like that. Would bring in a big mystery. Now, the reason why that would bring in a mystery and more people in versus, like, for instance, going in and committing a crime where you take the lives of one or two people, but those are the only occupants in the house. I mean, that might drive some local media up, but it's not going to probably drive nation media up unless you can correlate it with a series of events like a serial killer with other events. So if you can't correlate it with other events, then it's not going to get a lot of traction. There's a couple of cases that had occurred in and around that area not too long before the crime had occurred on November 13, 2022, that didn't get any traction nationwide until these murders occurred. I believe there was a couple that was stabbed to death in Washington State, not too far away from where Moscow and Pullman is, a couple of hours away or something of that nature. It also happened on the 13th day of whatever month it was. A lot of people were trying to correlate that with potentially being something to do with the Moscow murders. However, law enforcement ruled that out right away. But the only reason anybody got any traction of that was because they were able to correlate that crime with another crime. So if he would have gone into a house and just took the lives of one or two persons that were residing, and those were the only two people or one or two people there, yeah, local media probably pick it up. It might get some tractions. There are some cases that do. But it's more likely if there's some sort of mystery and focal point, and there is a focal point of pointing a finger towards, right, where people can say, oh, I think it was that guy, or I think it was this person, or I think it was that person. That is what gets the traction going. And so I still think that it was part of his motive. He had the delusions of grandeur. I think he even wrote that about himself in Tapatalk, and he even texted another friend of his that he had these dreams of being a detective that solved high profile crimes. Well, he wasn't going to be a detective. His background was stopping that. Him, even if he didn't commit these murders, he was never going to be a detective based on all the problems he was having, his heroin addiction, the problems he continued to have at WSU, and his arguments with his professor. I mean, the guy got fired within a semester. I mean, that should tell you something. So with that being said, he was never going to be a police officer. So you have three roles in that scene, right? You have the detective that solves the crime, you have the victim that's a part of the crime, and you have the killer that commits the crime. If he's not going to be the detective, I doubt he wants to be the victim. There's only one role for him to have in this delusion he has of grandeur. And so I think that he wanted to prove he was the smartest person. I think he was offended by the fact that he was terminated, and that he was terminated for whatever reason because people couldn't handle his intelligence is probably, his reasoning behind it, especially when we broke down, how he answered questions on that Quora survey yesterday that we found. I kind of told you a lot about that guy, and how he is. So, interesting stuff. So let's see if you guys have any questions. And thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Chloe. That would be great. Or maybe he knew many people were in there and wanted to do that to more than one. I guess we'll find out at trial. It's possible, One of the things that I point out when it comes to this is, because because people ask, like, what was the motive? Like, who was the target? Was it one? Was it two? Was it all? I don't know. What we do know is that he left the back sliding glass door open the entire time he was there. There's evidence to prove that. Murphy going outside during the same time that there's an altercation in Xana's room that is heard on a camera, where you can hear Murphy barking outside and you can hear the altercation happening, tells us that the back sliding glass door was open the entire time. We know that based on everything that's been released thus far, that it sounds like all the doors were open, that he did not close or lock the door. So it seems like his MO is once he opens a door, he does not touch it again. Obviously, the more you touch it, the longer you have it in your hand, all those things, the more likely that you can leave DNA behind. So it could be a situation where those doors were open already. Maybe that's the reason why he didn't go into Dylan's room, is because the door was closed. Maybe. But Kaylee's room was open. And if you look at the outline of the house, the first room that you would go into if you walked upstairs is Kaylee's room. Now, the reason we know that Kaylee's room is open because, well, Murphy runs downstairs and alerts Xana. And we know that because according to the court documents, the defense's documents about Dylan's statements, she mentions that she heard who she thought was Kaylee going upstairs with the dog. And so in order for him to go upstairs with Xana, because even the defense agrees that it was not Kaylee, that at that point she'd already lost her life, that it was most likely Xana. In order for Murphy to go up the stairs with Xana, he would have had to have gone down the stairs by himself. And in order for that to have happened, the door would have had to have been open. And in order for that door to have been open, and Bryan Kohberger still committing the crime that he was committing in Maddie's room, that means that Kaylee's room would have been the first one to be open. All right, because you don't open Maddie's room, commit the crime, finish, go to Kaylee's room, open the door. And it doesn't make any sense for the dog to run downstairs and run back upstairs all at the same time. No. So and we know that the door was open because according to the documents, the dash cams from the officer that arrived, Kaylee's door was open and Murphy was in there. So based on that, based on the MO of what we know of the perpetrator, it sounds like when he opens a door, he leaves it open. And the only way he would have opened Kaylee's door and left it open, if it was him, there's still the possibility that Kaylee just left it open, right? I don't think it's a very strong possibility because she had a young dog. I don't think that would be very conscientious of your roommates to allow a young dog to just roam around the house. It was a puppy, so it's may have had accidents and those type of things. And so I don't think that's logical that she would have just left the door open like that, but it is possible. So if you break it down in that manner and we are able to deduce what happened, we can deduce that it sounds like, based on the information that we know, that either Kaylee's room was always open or that was the first door that Bryan Kohberger opened when he went into that house. And if it was, that might say something about who the target is. Right? Now, I could have not said any of that stuff and did my whole psychic thing and just said that he went into Kaylee's room first. But no, I'm not like that. But that's how I believe he went into Kaylee's room first. Maybe that's why Kaylee may have been the target. He may have gotten mad at Kaylee for not being in the right room, which is why there was more serious injuries. May have also gotten mad at her because of where she was sleeping, positioned her on the inside of Maddie, between Maddie and the wall, which may have frustrated him because now he has to take somebody else's life and then go over that person to get to his objection. What do you guys think? Let me know in the live chat in the comments if my theory here is making sense to you guys. But yeah, I think that there's a good possibility that maybe Kaylee was the target because of all those things that I just mentioned. Let's see. Any questions? Z Vanderhoof comes in with a $2 super chat saying, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your support. Appreciate you. What's going on? What's going on? What is up? Let's go Ducks. Do you think he was who did that terrible thing to that little dog? I remember correctly. No, actually, I found a article that indicated that the Buddy the dog his life was taken by I think they use the term like animal life or something like that. I believe they think it was coyotes. Kind of weird because they said he's skinned, but they said it was coyotes. They were able to prove it was coyotes somehow, which is another thing. I mean, it probably went from, it was a bad scene, and then, somebody saying one thing and another, and then the story just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Let's see. Nope. He kidding. I don't know. I don't see any more questions, guys. If you have any, I'll be on here for another minute or so. Put a couple of stars. I'll look at them. If not, I'm gonna call it a show. I hope everybody had a good night. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think about my theory there about Kaylee being probably the target here, given the fact that the doors were open. I know it's not a lot, but I think that it's enough to say that once you start aligning it with the evidence and the barking outside and what Dylan heard and when she heard it and who she thought she heard going where with who, with the dog, I think it starts to make a little bit of sense. I think it makes a little bit of sense. Well, guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. I think I'm going to be on tomorrow night. Tomorrow is Friday? So I got something interesting to talk about tomorrow, unless something breaks in this case. But I will be back tomorrow night. I hope everybody had a good time. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Until tomorrow, peace out.
But it's too late now. I remember you and me, and how careless we could be.
All day and all night, we'd stay up, it felt so right. We were so young, we were so dumb. We would get drunk and then hook up. We were okay, we were alright, staying awake till the sunrise. We were in love, couldn't stop us, like a good drug, never enough.
We hook up in my car, driving so far, play your guitar, you'd show me your art, let down our guards, think with our hearts, stare at the stars, we were never apart, drinking too young, way too much fun, out in the sun, open when it's gone, took you to prom, dance to our song, dance all night long till the lights come on.
How careless we got. It's too late now. I remember you and me. How careless we got.
It's too late now, I remember everything, and how careless we could be, and how careless we could be.